There are very few games that I have experienced in my life that leave me with strong impressions after I am done playing them. I've played a large amount of titles over the years that all provided unique, engaging, and challenging experiences that were worth playing and replaying time and time again. Video games have always been a fun personal hobby that I enjoyed during my free time. I have many fond memories playing single-player story games that made me fall in love with the medium, but few ever reach a point where I can say they had a profound influence on my life. After playing through Celeste for the first time, and witnessing Madeline's journey overcoming her internal struggles, it became one of those experiences I would never forget. As a player, I tend to gravitate towards video games known for their difficulty. I'm always looking for titles that are designed well enough to carry the label of being challenging yet rewarding. I had heard Celeste was known for its difficult platforming and amazing story, so I went ahead and tried it out. After playing through the first few levels, learning how to jump, climb, and dash my way through obstacles, I found myself completely immersed into the game's atmosphere. I was exploring every corner of the thoughtfully well-crafted levels, attempting to grab all the strawberries within sight. I felt the desire to uncover every secret that I could find and exhaust all interactive dialogue whenever present. I wanted to see Madeline's journey through to the end, and I completed the entire game, past Chapter 3, all in one session. The story of Celeste is about a young girl named Madeline who is dead set on climbing to the top of Celeste Mountain, a mountain which is known to test one's abilities and resolve, some of which involves the supernatural. Madeline's reasons for climbing the mountain are slowly unraveled as she makes her way closer to the top, meeting a small but colorful cast of characters along the way. They make appearances throughout the game and all have their own motivations and attachments to Celeste Mountain. And it's no secret that Celeste contains a beautifully compelling story attached to its gameplay. We spend a majority of the game's story learning about Madeline's inner discord through her interactions with other characters. Her dialogue shows her as a conflicted soul aimlessly trying to achieve the task of reaching the summit, in hopes of finding peace of mind. Madeline is constantly pushing and pulling against forces out of her control, stubbornly moving forward out of spite for herself. In Madeline's struggle, a dark doppelganger version manifests, seemingly bent on halting all progress in her climb. This doppelganger is present throughout the story and acts as a mysterious antagonistic entity. Slowly it is revealed that this darker and more pragmatic part of Madeline is just as lost and scared as her natural self. We spend level after level slowly inching our way to the top, only for Madeline to cast herself all the way back down to the starting point. When our protagonist is at her lowest, she is finally ready to confront this other self. Earlier in the game, the Dark Doppelganger chased Madeline through one of the levels after failed attempts to compromise. But now, in a brilliant reversal of roles, the playable version of Madeline becomes the chaser in a heart-racing platforming boss battle. After the battle is won, both parts of Madeline learn to accept one another, finally forming into a stronger version of themselves. Madeline takes the first steps to getting better, learning to accept all parts that make her who she is. And with that, Madeline is ready to challenge the summit. For the final level of the game, you are rushed with shorter versions of every section before, starting at the Forsaken City, climbing all the way to the Mirror Temple, until you are at the base of the summit. One of my favorite little details present in Celeste are the musical ties between the prologue and the final level of the main game. At the beginning, during the prologue, the theme playing at the bridge collapse is the same theme played when you begin your climb at the summit. It's a subtle throwback to the beginning of Madeline and the player's journey. Both moments are exhilarating experiences that send you on your way, one to allude to future events, and the other to remind you about how far you've come. The summit is one of my favorite sections in any video game I have ever played. I felt completely immersed into the game world when climbing through each level and grabbing all the flags for checkpoints. Even though this was the hardest area by far, I felt compelled to keep pushing until I reached the top, to where I was rewarded by a brilliant and tear-jerking moment between Madeline and her other self. After reaching the end of the main game, I felt as though I had undergone a life-changing experience. I felt emotional towards the characters present within the story, but I also felt a deep emotion within myself. It is easy to relate to Madeline and apply her own conflicts to ourselves in some capacity. We all struggle with burdens in some way, shape, or form, whether it be similar fits of anxiety or deep depressions present in our main character, or something more external pertaining to our lives. Celeste's narrative has a commanding pull on strong emotional storytelling, and its video game format lends to that point heavily. Video games are the most engaging and distinctive storytelling mediums available. Viewers serve a more active role to the action and decisions in a story rather than being mere observers. Celeste's story is actively advanced by the player's own skill and drive to continue climbing the mountain, just as it is Madeline's own will to continue pushing forward against all odds. The player is tasked with navigating Madeline through increasingly challenging platforms in order to advance the narrative. With every action performed, the player and Madeline begin to overlap in a shared set of goals, both looking to further themselves. There is a subtle brilliance to Celeste in how the player's experience improving mechanically at the game is heavily tied into Madeline's personal journey of internal growth and self-improvement. As we continue to play, the techniques and precision required to get through each section become gradually more difficult, just as Madeline's own attitude towards climbing the mountain is continuously challenged. It takes a large amount of skill from the player to execute a series of actions correctly to advance forward, and this runs completely in parallel to the events occurring around Madeline. We are controlling Madeline throughout her own journey. She is the vessel for our time spent playing Celeste, thus every action, piece of dialogue, and death is shared between the two. I believe Celeste's strongest component, that is often overlooked when compared to its brilliant design and execution, is the game's direct and indirect interactions with the player throughout their own personal journey. At the beginning of the Celestial Resort level, we are given a postcard that reads as follows: "Be proud of your death count. The more you die, the more you are learning. Keep going." This message is meant to invigorate the player to continue moving forward and playing the game. The Celestial Resort level is significantly longer than the previous two levels that came before it, so it is appropriate to have this sort of message displayed before you enter. All deaths that occur during the level are not bad, it just means you're steadily getting better. This attitude towards the game must be kept moving forward if you're looking to beat it to completion. These postcards at the beginning of each level serve to directly interact with the player behind the screen. Almost all of them give you basic advice about game mechanics. However, the postcard presented in the reflection level tells the player that you cannot outrun your own reflection. This message is unlike any of the other game tips we have been given before. It is acknowledging Madeline's current predicament after exiting the Mirror Temple, having confronted her deepest fears. But unlike any sort of story device present within Celeste, this message was clearly intended for the player. If you were playing through Celeste for the first time and hadn't been thinking about your own reflection, you most certainly would be now. Even during the prologue of the game when we first meet Madeline, she is having a discussion with herself, questioning the very reason why she is even here. This is it, Madeline. Just breathe. Why are you so nervous? It isn't until you are done crossing the collapsing bridge and learning how to dash for your first time before you are met with the final line of dialogue to close out the intro. You can do this. Once again, another piece of dialogue is occurring within Madeline's mind, but it can easily be applied towards the player, for it is the player's choice to have started the game and it is their choice to continue advancing the story. The game is only going to get harder from here, and this is just the beginning. You've got this. It always felt like the game had my back and wanted to see me succeed. This element was the backbone of my own personal experience, leading me to feel more attached to the gameplay and story as a result. I was able to get better at the mechanics of the game while reflecting on my own personal struggles. Witnessing Madeline's journey from beginning to end was an engaging story experience, but having a role in every triumph and every struggle made it a much more enriching time. Seeing Madeline climb her own internal mountain made me want to begin my own personal climbs. Never before had I experienced a video game that was able to bring about such a change in my life. It is what keeps me coming back time and time again. The game Celeste is about more than just climbing the physical mountain present in the story, but it's about climbing the internal mountain present in each and every one of us. Celeste is a truly fantastic example for how video games can deliver a uniquely interactive experience that can't be replicated in other media. The feeling of joy that comes from finally completing an area you were stuck on or being able to grab that out-of-place strawberry is like no other. From the first time I picked it up to the more recent speedruns of the game, I am continuously impressed by its quality. From the satisfying gameplay to its deeply personal story and secrets to uncover, Celeste is still one of my all-time favorites, and it still stands out to this day as a brilliant title amongst its platforming counterparts. I won't be the first person, nor will I be the last person, to say that you should experience this game at least once. Just remember, the mountain shows you who you really are, whether you are ready for it or not.